There are moments in life when the road ahead feels endless, and the ground beneath your feet keeps crumbling away. You stand there, holding on to whatever little you have, and still, the world keeps asking for more. That's where Chris Gardner's story begins. Not as a man who had it all figured out, but as someone drowning in uncertainty. The bills were piling up, the rent overdue, his marriage breaking apart, the echoes of arguments filling the small apartment. And yet, every morning, Chris woke up with one conviction: his son. A small boy who looked at him not for what he owned, but for who he was. That gaze became both his anchor and his horizon. Chris invested everything he had into portable bone density scanners, believing they would be his ticket to stability. But reality was unkind. Doctors weren't buying. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, and every no felt heavier than the last. Soon, money ran out. The apartment was gone. They moved from motels to shelters, sometimes even sleeping in public restrooms. Imagine that. Brushing your teeth in a gas station sink while the rest of the city rushes to work. Holding your child close, pretending it's all a game so he doesn't feel the weight you carry in your chest. That's the part of the story we rarely see, the quiet dignity of not letting despair break you in front of those who depend on you. But Chris didn't stop. He saw a chance, a competitive internship at a brokerage firm. 6 months. No pay. No guarantee. Just a slim possibility. Most would have walked away, but he took it. Because sometimes, perseverance isn't about seeing the finish line. It's about refusing to quit in the dark. And so, his climb began. Every morning, Chris would dress in the same worn suit, carrying the weight of his reality hidden beneath a determined smile. He worked at the brokerage firm during the day, learning, absorbing, fighting to stand out among dozens of interns who had a home to return to, clean clothes to wear, and a meal waiting for them. Chris had none of that. Time became his greatest enemy. He had to sell the few remaining scanners just to afford food, but the hours he spent chasing clients were stolen from the hours he needed to study. He couldn't afford the luxury of mistakes. Every phone call had to count, every meeting had to matter. At night, he and his son would stand in line at the homeless shelter. Some nights there were no beds, and they'd end up on the cold floor of a public restroom, Chris sitting against the door, one arm around his boy, the other keeping the world out. But even there, in the quiet hum of fluorescent lights, he refused to let his son feel abandoned. He made stories out of nothing, turned empty spaces into castles in their imagination. He taught him that circumstances were temporary, but dignity was permanent. It's strange how the smallest acts, tucking in a child with no blanket, laughing with him on an empty stomach, can carry more meaning than the grandest victories. Because perseverance isn't always loud. Sometimes, it's the silent decision to wake up tomorrow and try again, even when today left you with nothing. And so the days passed, each one a test of endurance, each one a step up a mountain whose peak was still hidden in the clouds. There's a moment in every long struggle when your body is present, but your spirit feels like it's lagging behind. Chris reached that point. The internship was unforgiving. Every target missed meant another shadow over his chances of being chosen. And every night, exhaustion gnawed at him, whispering that maybe this wasn't worth it. But here's the thing about dreams: they're stubborn. They cling to you even when you want to let go. Chris would see his son's small hands clutching his backpack, his sleepy eyes trusting without question, and something inside him refused to break. At the office, Chris doubled down. He stopped wasting seconds. He learned to solve problems faster, make calls quicker, cut through hesitation like a blade. He knew he couldn't work more hours than the others, but he could work smarter than all of them. Still, the weight was crushing. His clothes were fraying. His face was worn. And yet, he carried himself with the quiet pride of a man who refused to be defined by the dirt on his shoes. Because true dignity isn't about appearing untouched, it's about standing tall while everyone can see the storm you're walking through. The internship was nearing its end, and the air at the office felt different, sharper, heavier. Everyone knew only one intern would be hired. The rest would be left with nothing but the memory of unpaid months. Chris didn't have the luxury of nothing. This job wasn't about a career move for him. It was the line between survival and collapse. He woke up earlier, left later, and learned to navigate the day like a man walking on a narrow ledge. There was no safety net. His calls to potential clients became conversations, not pitches. He listened, understood, built trust. Slowly, his numbers began to rise, like small lights in the dark. But life, as always, didn't pause to let him breathe. There were still days when he and his son had nowhere to go, nights when the shelter was full, and they'd walk the streets until exhaustion forced them to find a quiet corner to rest. The city was loud, unforgiving, and indifferent, but Chris had learned to find stillness within it. And that stillness became his weapon. While others panicked under pressure, he stayed calm. While others chased clients with empty urgency, he approached them with genuine patience. That patience was born from survival. When you've been through nights without a roof, a client hanging up on you doesn't shake you. Every evening, he'd take his son's small hand in his and walk back to whatever shelter awaited them. No matter how tired he was, he made sure the boy laughed at least once before falling asleep. Chris knew the world could take away everything, but if he could protect his child's smile, he was still winning. The final day of the internship was approaching. And with it, the moment that would decide everything. The last day of the internship felt like standing on the edge of a cliff. Chris walked into the office knowing that, in a few hours, his life would either change or unravel completely. He had given everything, his time, his health, his comfort, his safety. Now, all he could do was wait. They called him into a small room. The partners sat across the table, their expressions unreadable. One of them began to speak, slowly, measuring each word.
Wear one tomorrow, though, okay? Because tomorrow's going to be your first day. If you'd like to work here as a broker. Would you like that, Chris?
Yes, sir.
Good. We couldn't be happier. So, welcome. Was it as easy as it looked?
No, sir. No, sir, it wasn't.
Good luck, Chris.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, sir.
Oh, Chris.
Tomorrow is going to be your first day. For a moment, the words didn't register. He nodded, smiled politely, thanked them. He shook their hands and walked out. But the moment the elevator doors closed, the facade broke. His shoulders dropped, his eyes filled, and he clapped his hands together in a silent celebration. He had made it. That walk out of the building was different from every other. The same streets, the same city, but now, each step felt lighter. It wasn't about the money or the title. It was the quiet knowledge that the nights on the shelter floor, the days spent running between clients and interviews, the moments of despair that nearly swallowed him whole, had all led to this. When he picked up his son from daycare, he didn't tell him about the job right away. Instead, he held him longer than usual. That embrace wasn't just relief, it was a promise kept. A silent vow that no matter how dark it had gotten, he had never stopped walking toward the light. Chris Gardner's climb wasn't about escaping poverty. It was about proving to himself, and to his son, that dignity could survive the harshest storms, and that perseverance, even when invisible to the world, can move mountains. Chris's story isn't just about a man who went from homelessness to success. If that's all we take from it, we miss the deeper truth. This is about the quiet war so many fight every day, a war that doesn't make headlines, but leaves scars just the same. Perseverance isn't always a cinematic sprint toward victory. More often, it's the slow, unglamorous crawl forward when quitting feels like the only sane option. It's waking up for the 100th day with no clear proof that your effort will pay off, but moving anyway. It's showing up to life without the certainty of a reward. And dignity. Dignity is the way you carry yourself when life strips away everything you can show to the world. It's choosing not to let desperation poison the way you treat others. It's making sure your child still laughs even when you're breaking inside. Chris's climb teaches us that the measure of a person is not how they act when the odds are in their favor, but how they keep walking when the road disappears beneath their feet. That kind of strength isn't built in comfort, it's forged in cold nights, empty rooms, and the relentless pressure of needing to keep going. And here's the truth, most of us will face our own versions of that climb. Maybe it won't be homelessness, maybe it won't be financial ruin, but there will be seasons when the world feels indifferent to our existence, when we're tested in ways we didn't ask for. Those seasons shape us. Not because they're fair, but because they demand that we decide who we are, even in the dark. If you strip away the specifics, the scanners, the brokerage firm, the shelters, Chris's story is a mirror. Because in some way, we've all been there. Standing at the intersection of hope and exhaustion, trying to move forward while the weight on our back feels unbearable. Maybe for you, it's been chasing a dream that no one believes in. Or holding your family together when everything else is falling apart. Or waking up every day to face a battle no one else even sees. The details change, but the heartbeat of the struggle remains the same. And that's why stories like this matter. They remind us that progress isn't always visible, that small steps count, and that no one is ever as alone as they feel in their worst moments. There's a kind of sacredness in enduring, in saying, "Not today," to the voice that tells you to give up. The pursuit of happiness isn't just a film. It's a map. It whispers that the path is rarely straight, that sometimes the lowest valleys are what prepare us for the highest peaks. And that happiness, spelled with that stubborn, imperfect Y, is often less about the final victory and more about who we become on the way there. Chris's story doesn't promise that every fight will end in triumph. What it promises is that the fight itself has value, that the dignity we protect and the perseverance we practice will outlast the season we're in. And when the day finally comes when the door opens, we'll walk through it not as the same person who started, but as someone who knows the weight of every step it took to get there. If you're listening to this, maybe you're standing in your own storm. Maybe you're staring at a door that won't open, holding on to hope with tired hands. Maybe you've already lost things you thought you couldn't live without. I don't know your exact story, but I know what it feels like to be on the edge of giving up. I know how heavy it is to carry a dream when the world doesn't seem to care. And I know that the silence between your efforts and the result can be the loudest, most painful sound in the world. Chris's journey isn't meant to be a fairy tale ending for us to admire from afar. It's a reminder that the nights you survive matter. That the steps you take while no one is watching are not wasted. That the way you hold on, even if it's by a thread, is building a strength you can't yet see. There will be days when the progress feels invisible. When the light at the end of the tunnel feels more like a myth than a promise. But if Chris's life teaches us anything, it's this. One day without warning, the door will open. And when it does, you'll realize it wasn't luck that brought you there. It was every single moment you refused to let go. So keep walking. Even if your steps are slow. Even if your path is unclear. Even if no one else understands. Because somewhere ahead, the life you've been fighting for is waiting. And when you arrive, you'll know. It was worth every single step.
Planets are there?
7.
7. 9. Who's the king of the jungle?
Gorilla.
The gorilla? The gorilla? No. The lion.
Oh yeah, lion. Hey Dad, listen to this. Knock knock.
Oh, who's there?
Shelby.
Shelby who?
Shelby coming around the mountain when she comes. Knock knock.
Who's there?
Nobody.
Nobody who? Nobody who? Oh. That's funny. I like that one.